I took a bath today. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the TARDIS. It's amazing. I am keenly aware of how fortunate I am to have this place to work in, a 12 by 12 dedicated shed. But and I know a lot of you guys are everything's crunched together on one little work table, and so believe me, I'm keenly aware how fortunate I am. But still, I managed to run out of space. It's my superpower. So much to talk about today. I wound up giving the P80 a Purple Power bath to strip it. In fact, you know what? I recorded something earlier while it was all fresh in my mind, so let's just go to a few hours ago, Max, and I'll be back soon. See you in a bit. Well, hello guys, Max of Max's Models here, and you may be wondering why you're looking at footage of my F80 drip drying. So let me explain. I want to do this while it's fresh in my mind. I was not having success recoating the model and trying to repaint it. It always wound up looking rough, even after I'd stripped and cleaned off those rough areas where the paint had reacted. And I finally realized this. I would sand a little more and get down to the black underneath. I remember, okay, this model was one of them that I practiced using my metal paints on, where you put down the black lacquer coat and then you put on the bare metal and everything, and it hadn't really turned out that great. It was an early attempt. Well, actually the paints had gone on okay. The problem really was I had just done a claddle trap job of putting the model together in a hurry. I don't remember why I was in a rush. It's just sometimes you probably just should back away and not build instead of getting I want to get done-itis, or as we say in aviation, get there-itis. It always leads to bad results. So when I started pulling this thing, trying to sand it down, I remember one of the reasons I was having so much trouble, there's so many layers on it. The detail was disappearing and everything. I said, you know what, I need to properly strip this thing. And this was supposed to be a quick and dirty reshoot, because mainly I just had done such a terrible job on that nose piece. As you may recall, it didn't match the stripe, and it has, in the military they call it mission creep, or as we used to say when I was a kid, when you're up to your armpits in alligators, it's hard to remember that you initially set out just to drain the pond. So what has happened is I've decided that I've got way too much time invested in this thing. It's like being poker, being pot committed. I've got too much time invested to quit at this point. So I'm like, okay, time to pull out the big gun. So out came the Purple Power. I gave it a good soak, got the sandpaper and the toothbrush and soaked it for a while till stuff started to lift. And probably could have left it in there longer, because the recently added stuff came right off. But eventually I was able to, using some fine grit sandpaper and Purple Power, I was able to both toothbrush and wet sand most of the old stuff off. So I realized another little mistake was, if I'm going to do this thing in metal, I really shouldn't be priming it with this fine surface primer. Great stuff, okay? I mean, I think the world of it, but I'm going to do better to go ahead and shoot this in a gloss black, let that harden, put a clear coat over just to be sure, and then hit it with the metal, with the bare aluminum. And I already ordered some aftermarket decals for it for the Korean War era, and that'll give me a couple of choices. Only this time, since like the other ones, the stripe only comes up here to the tip of the nose, you have to match the paints. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never been able to get a paint to perfectly match a decal. So I'll probably tape that off and put the blue or red nose back on it using an airbrush. Or I may go with one of the color schemes that doesn't have one of the big nose decorations. We'll see. I may go with a more basic, stars and bars, the waistband, the canopy brake red line, the black glare shield, and a couple of numbers, something more basic. We'll see. But right now, it looks like I've gotten pretty much all the bad stuff off, and everything looks smooth. The tail feathers are starting to get a little loose from the Purple Power. So after I was done, I rinsed it countless times and soaked it in water. Now I'm letting it air dry for, I think an hour or two will do it. I'll stick it in front of the fan here in a little bit, and then maybe I'll just let it air dry overnight and leave the fan going. That way tomorrow it should be nice and dry inside and out. As you can tell, I removed the windshield and the pilot. The cockpit, you can't really see inside, so I'm not worried about detailing out the cockpit, but I'll probably put a few little details back in there, paint the ejection seat and stuff in situ. Get the joke, seat in situ. Anyway, so that's where we are at with that. And I will probably have some more stuff to add to this video as the day goes by. I'm still working on the Heracles, but I just wanted to tell you that was kind of the big development. This thing really ate up most of my model building time today, just from, like I say, it just took on a life of its own. But after a while, you're like, I will not be defeated. So there we have it. So I'll talk to you guys later and model on. Well, there we are with that. And so what I have done since then, I got it cleaned up, is I wanted to use gloss black, and the only gloss I had left was some old Testors enamel, and I made sure the can was warm and gave it a proper amount of agitation and everything. But it's kind of my conclusion that Testors enamels, especially there's not a lot left in the can, the rattle cans, they just don't age that well. No matter what you try, they tend to come out in sort of thicker than normal globules, if you will. The spray pattern's not nice and the stuff's not quite as liquidy. So once I had hit the airplane with it and saw that sort of splatter pattern, and I should have known better, but I figured, and by the way, I did the underside of the aircraft because I knew if this didn't work, I didn't want it where it would be as noticeable. But there was enough left in the can to put on a fairly thick coat so that it would flow out, and it did, and now it looks acceptable. But I'm going to give this a couple of days to harden because it's older stuff and everything, but it is gloss. But I have some regular black of the Tamiya lacquers. I have semi-gloss, I have just called black, and I have some flat, and I want to use the gloss. I didn't realize it was actually labeled gloss black, so I tried just the black, a couple of light coats. Looks real good. So once this enamel, and it didn't react, there was a little spot where it touched the enamel, made sure they didn't argue with each other. I don't see any reaction. So once this is hardened completely, I'm going to clear coat it, then I'm going to hit it with the black, then I'm going to clear coat that, and once that's all done and hardened, then I'm just going to come back and hit it with the aluminum. I did go ahead and spray the drop tanks with that different shade anodized aluminum, the stuff that was actually made for the clear car bodies. Yeah, it was the PS. I shot the tanks with that, but they were just raw plastic. There was nothing on them, so they came out fine, just so they'd be a little bit different than the rest of the airplane. So this whole thing is, like I say, it's just turned into way more of an adventure than it was supposed to be. But that's, all part of the hobby. If it doesn't turn out decent this time, then if I'm not happy with the paint job, then what I'm going to do is just go get another P80 to build from scratch for my Korean War display, and I'll make this a fantasy build or put it in some, kind of fantasy markings or something like that. Have some fun with it. If it just doesn't look good, and then, find the nearest kid that wants a toy to play with, and here, kid, play with this model jet. So, anywho, let's see, what else have we got? So, I got some work done on the Heracles. It comes with a little jig that's really handy and actually kind of crucial for putting the make sure the wings are properly aligned. It's a clever idea. Every biplane kit maker should include something like this, and it actually works. Now, of course, it's still every bit the trick that building a biplane is that you would expect, but I have to admit the parts fit really well. I don't, a little clean out, not too much. Airfix is doing an okay job. Given how complex the airplane is, it's got that cool biplane tail. I just think those are so cool. What I didn't realize was those little outer trim tabs. They don't go all the way from the top to the bottom. They protrude from the bottom only part way, and then the three big pieces, of course, make a full biplane tail. They do cover the top to the bottom, but I might have to look at some pictures of the actual airplane. If there's supposed to be a post in there, I didn't see it in the instructions, so I might get a little piece of sprue or wire or something, but I'll research that. Not a big deal. And also, I got to work on the Tamiya 1:100 scale Boeing helicopter. I'm not 100% sure which one of the New York Airways paint schemes I want to use. The Pan Am scheme it's still New York Airways. It's a little bit simpler. The straight up just New York Airways scheme is a little trickier, but not too bad. But thing is you have to paint all the underside. You have to do the blue and the red and then the super thin white trim. And I've got some white decal trim that might be able to pull that off. I'm going to have to give that a ponder, because that's the kind of thing that we really easy to mess up, especially on a smaller scale model, but it would look cool. Quick question to Mike Machad, if you happen to see this. When you had your rides in New York Airways Boeing Vertol helicopters, were they in the Pan Am New York Airways colors, or just the straight up New York Airways colors, or both? But just curious. So anyway, and for the canopy, I'm using that canopy glue to seat the windows and everything. I've already pre-painted the side of the fuselage, so I'll be able to cover all the windows. And I'm using the liquid mask for the windshield. And I'm going to have to hit it with some sort of primer coat or something so that the white's not translucent. But I also took out that Rodin DC-7C and took a look at it and decided, you know what, it's a pretty simple kit. I'll see if I can't get this done in time for the airliner build and at least get started. One of my FOs used to fly DC-7, so I asked him if he had a picture of the one he used to flew, and maybe I could make it look something like that. And if he has a picture and I do, maybe I'll just give it to him when I'm done if he wants it. I'd heard people warn me about the Rodin kits, and they're taking a lot of trimming and fitting. The low-hanging fruit was the fuselage halves, and they line up okay, but you have a lot of scraping. That three-sided scraper, X-Acto scraper that was sent to me by Glue Trooper, came in real handy for trimming that down, making little adjustments. So it's still going to need a little putty, but still, it's not a bad kit, but it's not like the parts don't line up. They're just, there's gaps and the parts don't fit. You have to file them down. But I would put it maybe this is being a little unfair, but I'd put it on par maybe with an early 60s Aurora kit, if that's not being too harsh. But anyway, so that's where we're at. I did get some building done and have the fan set up here to keep blowing. I've got it just turned off for the moment while this P80 is gassing out. But I'm also, one other little quick note, I noticed that the rotor blades for the Tamiya helicopter, the typical Tamiya, they give you all these wonderful details on how to paint it. I usually just paint my helicopter rotor blades black, with maybe a yellow tip or something. Well, turns out that the New York Airways ones, that's correct, except that the top of the blade is silver. It still has the yellow tip on it, and it has the black leading edge and the black bottom. So I've clear coated the black rotor blades, and I'm going to see about trying to tape them off and put a light coat of the lacquer aluminum on there, or silver, probably the aluminum color, and then I'll hand paint the rotor hubs, and hopefully it'll come out looking good. It's a good little kit, but that small scale, a little hard for these old eyes and big fingers to work with, but that's what I got. So there you go. Well, guys, that's the report for the day. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. We'll see you later, and as always, model on. Can only put so much lipstick on the pig.